And I lived in a one-bedroom apartment with a girl and a guy, and the girl and the guy was on a pull-out couch, and like we would never allow him to go to bed until we were ready. We're going, no.
Behind the glitz and glamour of one of TV's most beloved icons lies a story darker than anyone could have imagined. This is the tragedy of Heather Locklear. 30 years ruling Hollywood's spotlight, 3 decades of glittering fame, endless fortune, and red carpet glory. Yet behind those blinding lights laid 20 trips to rehab and more encounters with the police than movie premieres. That's the haunting paradox of Heather Locklear, a woman who once owned television only to become its most tragic cautionary tale. Back in her prime, Heather wasn't just famous, she was television royalty. From Dynasty to Melrose Place and Spin City, she ruled the screen with a beauty that felt untouchable, cool, elegant, and dangerously magnetic. Her smile could light up any room, yet behind those perfect features, the cracks were already forming. When the posters began curling on the walls and the phone stopped ringing, the truth hit harder than any headline. Heather's world quietly crumbled. Failed marriages, a soul worn thin, and battles with the mind she couldn't seem to win. But the most devastating blow didn't come from tabloids. It came from her daughter, Ava Sambora, whose heartbreaking words revealed a side of Heather the world was never meant to see. In that moment, fans realized that the cruelest punishment wasn't fame's fallout. It was the torment that lived inside a mother's heart. Heather's downfall isn't just another Hollywood tragedy. It's a reflection of something deeper. The war between the spotlight and the shadows, the cheers of millions, and the silence of loneliness. She was a goddess on screen, yet a wounded soul off it. And in the end, her fiercest battle wasn't against fame or fortune. It was against herself. Born on September 25, 1961, in Los Angeles, Heather Dean Locklear came from humble roots in the San Fernando Valley. Her father, Bill Locklear, a former Marine and later a UCLA employee, raised her on discipline, faith, and patriotism. Her mother, Diane Locklear, worked as a production executive at Disney, filling their home with creativity and color. The balance between her father's order and her mother's artistry shaped Heather into someone rare, a young girl who could dream big while staying grounded. Her childhood carried such charm that some later whispered it even inspired a Tom Petty song. Though well-behaved and deeply devoted to her parents, Heather wasn't without a spark of rebellion. At just 6 years old, she charmed her way out of punishment so effortlessly that her parents never used corporal discipline again. Even then, the signs were there: charisma, presence, and a quiet power that made people feel something. Before Hollywood ever knew her name, Heather Locklear had already mastered her first role, persuasion. That lesson, that gentleness could be strength, stayed with her, but her teenage years were far from perfect. In her own words, Heather admitted she was nothing special in high school. Not the smartest, not the most popular, and certainly not the prettiest. She was rejected from the cheerleading squad, wore braces that never seemed to sparkle, battled relentless acne, and endured teasing from classmates who mocked her thin frame. Still, there was one constant, a boy she dated on and off for years. Their roller coaster relationship, full of breakups and reconciliations, even flared up on prom night. Looking back, she would later see those turbulent teenage days as the quiet forging ground for the resilience she'd need to survive Hollywood. Amid the chaos of adolescence, Heather discovered something magical: the stage. Theater became her sanctuary. In school plays, she found confidence and purpose. The same shy girl who felt invisible in the hallways came alive under the spotlight. Teachers noticed it. Classmates whispered it. There was something about her presence, poised, radiant, magnetic. When the curtain rose, Heather Locklear wasn't the awkward girl with braces. She was unforgettable. Offstage, she poured herself into extracurriculars, volunteering, leading, and often chosen as the face of school events. Academically, she thrived too. too. She dreamed of studying psychology at UCLA, imagining a quiet career dedicated to understanding the human mind. But destiny had other plans, plans that glowed under stage lights instead of fluorescent bulbs. After graduating high school, the transformation began. The once awkward girl began to bloom. While attending UCLA, a twist of fate changed everything. Her father, who worked there, helped her land a small modeling job for the UCLA's Bearwear fashion catalog. That single opportunity opened a door she never expected. Though her modeling dreams faded quickly, the experience gave her a glimpse of something bigger, performing.
And here's where Heather did what few ever manage. She turned a fleeting chance into a career-defining leap. While most models struggled to break into acting, Heather was the rare exception. With her mix of grace, determination, and quiet fire, she wasn't just stepping into Hollywood, she was about to light it up. At just 20 years old, Heather Locklear walked into Hollywood's golden gates almost by accident and straight onto the set of Dynasty, the glittering primetime soap that defined 1980s television. The show revolved around a Denver oil dynasty dripping with wealth, scandal, and power. And suddenly, there was Heather, wide-eyed and untested, trying to hold her own among television royalty. She had the looks, that unmistakable California glow, and an effortless charisma cameras loved. But when it came to acting, her confidence cracked under pressure. Every scene felt like walking a tightrope. She stumbled over cues, forgot lines, and fumbled her movements. The stage lights felt like interrogation lamps. Then came the moment that nearly broke her. During a dramatic pause, Heather froze, completely paralyzed. The set fell silent. Producer Elaine Rich, watching from behind the camera, finally blurted out, "Oh my God, let her learn to count to 3." The crew chuckled awkwardly, and Heather's cheeks burned red. Rich wasn't done. Convinced Heather's voice was too shrill, she sent her to a vocal coach to lower her pitch, to find the depth her character demanded. For a young actress barely out of college, it was brutal. Those early days were a battlefield between her insecurities and her ambition, between the promise of stardom and the fear of being tossed aside before she even began. But Heather didn't fold. She refused to let humiliation write her story. She studied, trained, and rehearsed relentlessly, determined to prove she belonged. Slowly, she transformed her on-screen alter ego, Sammy Jo Carrington, into something unforgettable. With each episode, her confidence grew, her voice steadied, and her performance deepened. Viewers noticed. Producers believed. That role became her launchpad, the moment Heather Locklear stepped out of anonymity and into the bright chaos of Hollywood fame. From a shy UCLA student with shaky hands to a rising television star, she embodied the American dream in real time, live every week in front of millions. The 1980s became Heather's decade. Dynasty wasn't just a show, it was a cultural phenomenon. Glitter, greed, and glamour rolled into one, and as Sammy Jo, Heather was its secret weapon, the alluring blonde who was equal parts charm and cunning, scheming yet magnetic. She added a pulse of danger and desire that made audiences tune in religiously. Her performance helped push Dynasty into Nielsen's top 10, drawing tens of millions of viewers each week. Heather stayed with the show for nearly a decade, years that would define her, shape her, and ultimately seal her legacy. By the end of that run, Heather Locklear wasn't just a cast member, she was a household name. Her face was on magazine covers, her name whispered in casting offices across Hollywood, and every week, audiences saw her evolve, not just as Sammy Jo, but as Heather herself, finding her voice, her power, and her place among television's elite. That role was her foundation. Without Sammy Jo and Dynasty, there would never have been Amanda Woodward in Melrose Place. The first role made her famous, the next would make her legendary. After Dynasty, Heather's momentum didn't slow for a second. She leapt straight into another hit, T.J. Hooker, starring alongside the legendary William Shatner. Shatner later admitted Heather was his ultimate muse, the kind of actress who lit up a set the moment she arrived. But there was one irony no one missed. The police uniform she wore on the show completely hid the curves that had made her famous. Producers, obsessed with ratings and terrified of losing their male audience, came up with a ridiculous fix: padded bras and underwear with fake curves. For a while, Heather went along with it, uncomfortably wearing the bulky costume pieces. But when she walked into the dressing room one morning and found a pair of padded panties waiting for her, she'd had enough. "You're not going to make me wear that," she said firmly, and she meant it. Years later, laughing about it on the Drew Barrymore show, Heather confessed, "My chest was flat, my butt was flat, but I was never going to let anyone define me with something fake." That single act of defiance didn't just show her confidence, it created Stacey Sheridan, the strong, genuine woman audiences fell in love with. And while writers tried adding bikini scenes and go-go dancing moments to boost ratings, Heather's real magic was never in those gimmicks. Because beyond the scripts and costumes, T.J. Hooker made Heather the heart of 1980s television, the woman who could hold her own next to a screen icon like Shatner. It was the role that set her up for what came next, the one that would define a decade.
From the innocent image of Dynasty to the badge-wielding allure of T.J. Hooker, Heather stepped into the blinding spotlight of the 1990s as Amanda Woodward in Melrose Place. Originally, she was supposed to appear in just 4 episodes, but the moment she arrived, ratings skyrocketed, jumping from 94th place in the first season to 50th in the second, with nearly 15 million Americans tuning in each week. Amanda Woodward was everything Heather had become: sharp, commanding, and unapologetically ambitious. She wasn't just a character, she was a force. Critics hailed her as the queen of prime time, and her 4 straight Golden Globe nominations proved it. Each week, Heather's name alone made Melrose Place appointment television. But Heather wasn't done yet. Her reign extended well beyond Melrose Place. In the late 1990s, just as Spin City began to lose momentum, producers brought Heather in, and once again, she became the show's saving grace. Playing Caitlin Moore, the sharp-tongued yet irresistibly charming political aide, Heather breathed new life into the series. It was déjà vu, another rescue, another revival. On set, her energy was electric. Michael J. Fox once said her arrival gave the show a new vitality and a warmth that didn't know it needed. Later, when Charlie Sheen stepped in to replace Fox, he called Heather the perfect co-star, razor sharp but with humor that could dissolve tension in seconds. By then, Heather Locklear wasn't just starring in TV's biggest shows, she was television. Its golden face, its magnetic energy, the woman who could turn any struggling series into a cultural phenomenon. Heather also became the bridge between 2 emotional eras of Spin City, helping audiences transition after Michael J. Fox's heartbreaking departure due to Parkinson's disease. She softened that blow and kept viewers invested when the show could have easily collapsed without Fox's presence. Her portrayal of Caitlin not only revived the series, but redefined her as an actress with remarkable range. The proof came with 2 consecutive Golden Globe nominations in 2000 and 2001. Clear evidence that Heather wasn't just the queen of drama, but a powerhouse who could command both laughter and heart. After Spin City, Heather wasn't ready to fade quietly. Her next stop was Boston Legal, 2007 to 2009, the critically acclaimed legal drama featuring some of television's most seasoned actors. It was a bold pivot, trading glitz for gravitas. This wasn't the glossy world of Melrose Place anymore. It was a mature, grounded reinvention. Heather proved she could shed the skin of soap operas and sitcoms to take on something deeper, grittier, and more human. Audiences were startled and impressed. Gone was the dazzling blonde bombshell wrapped in sequins and attitude. In her place stood a woman of quiet strength, delivering courtroom monologues with controlled power and earned experience. It was a new Heather, less about allure, more about substance. This wasn't just acting, it was reflection. Boston Legal didn't crown her like
like Melrose Place did, but it cemented her legacy as a survivor, an artist who refused to be typecast or forgotten. Recognition didn't only come from drama. Her comedic timing made her one of the few stars invited twice to host Saturday Night Live, a distinction reserved for true A-listers. She wasn't just an actress, she was a cultural event. In 1991, she was voted favorite female television performer at the People's Choice Awards, a clear declaration that America didn't just watch Heather, they adored her. For nearly 2 decades, Heather Locklear was everywhere. Her face graced TV Guide and Rolling Stone, her name synonymous with primetime success. Year after year, she appeared on People's list of the most beautiful women in America. Recognition not just of her looks, but of the magnetism that made her unforgettable. From the awkward teenager once mocked for braces and acne, Heather transformed into a television icon, the woman who defined an era. This was her golden age, the moment when Hollywood didn't just watch her, it revolved around her. For a shining time, Heather Locklear wasn't merely part of television. She was television. Heather's personal life often mirrored the chaos and drama of her on-screen worlds. Before Richie Sambora ever entered the picture, she had already lived through a headline-grabbing marriage to Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee, a union as explosive as any rock anthem. Their love story began with a proposal straight out of a Hollywood fantasy. It was Christmas Eve, 1985. The two were riding in a sleek limousine when Tommy, ever the showman, suddenly popped up through the sunroof, the night wind whipping his wild hair. In one hand, he held a dazzling 2.3-carat diamond ring that glittered under the city lights. With a grin that radiated pure rebellion, he shouted down, "Will you marry me?" It was impulsive, over the top, and wildly romantic, exactly what the world expected from rock's bad boy and television's golden girl.
On May 10th, 1986, they made it official in a lavish ceremony that captivated Hollywood. Flashbulbs popped, champagne flowed, and for a brief moment, Heather seemed to be living the fairy tale everyone dreamed of. But the illusion shattered quickly. Their honeymoon in the Cayman Islands turned into something darker, a violent clash that became so intense, local authorities had to intervene. Back in the States, things appeared calmer, but the cracks deepened. Heather longed for peace and stability, yet what she found was chaos wrapped in leather and tattoos. Tommy bragged that his wife could down Jack Daniels like a real rocker, a shocking image of the same woman who once struggled to act drunk on Dynasty. Beneath the bravado lay something far more troubling. Biographies and insider accounts painted a grim picture, one of bruises, tears, and fear. Friends claimed Tommy's temper often spiraled into violence, with Heather once being shoved against a wall during one of his rages. Still, she clung to hope. Determined to save the marriage, she urged him to attend AA meetings, went through couples counseling, and even agreed to take an AIDS test alongside him. A harrowing step after it was revealed that a woman linked to Tommy had tested positive for the disease. By all accounts, their marriage's survival until 1993 was a miracle. But miracles have limits. One heartbreaking incident became the final straw. According to reports, Heather returned home one day to find her beloved dog dead, allegedly attacked by Tommy's Rottweiler. He denied it, but to Heather, it was the final sign that love could no longer exist amid such destruction. After 7 tumultuous years, she walked away. The paperwork cited irreconcilable differences, but those close to her knew it was more. The end of a storm that nearly consumed her. Behind the red carpet smiles, it had always been chaos. A rising TV icon bound to a reckless 23-year-old rocker. The price was years of heartbreak and quiet disillusionment. But in 1994, Heather took another leap of faith. Her second chance at love came with Richie Sambora, the legendary Bon Jovi guitarist whose charm and confidence promised something steadier, something real. This time, the story looked like it might finally have a fairy tale ending. At that moment, Heather was at the height of her fame, dazzling millions as Amanda Woodward in Melrose Place. Richie was a global superstar, adored by fans worldwide. When they met, introduced by makeup artist Lisa Christie, sparks flew instantly. Within 7 short months, Richie proposed on Christmas Day, slipping a stunning pear-shaped Cartier diamond ring onto her finger, a moment straight out of a Hollywood movie. The very next day, Heather proudly flashed her new engagement ring at the Emmy Awards, the cameras flashing as journalists declared them Hollywood's golden couple. On December 17, 1994, they sealed their love in a lavish, fairy tale wedding in Paris. The ceremony was intimate yet grand, watched closely by the entire entertainment world. The union of a beloved television star and a rock legend seemed like perfection itself. In 1997, joy blossomed in their lives with the birth of their daughter, Ava Sambora. The media went wild. Magazine covers showcased the radiant family, calling Ava the symbol of their everlasting love. To the world, Heather and Richie had it all: fame, fortune, family, and a picture-perfect love story. But as is often the case in Hollywood, what glittered on the outside hid the cracks beneath. Richie was constantly on the road, swept up in the chaos of touring with Bon Jovi. Heather, meanwhile, was consumed by grueling filming schedules that left her exhausted and emotionally drained. Their worlds moved in opposite directions, and the distance between them slowly turned into silence, then resentment. By 2006, the illusion shattered. Heather stunned everyone when she filed for divorce in Los Angeles Superior Court, citing irreconcilable differences. In the filing, she sought custody of their 8-year-old daughter, Ava, while granting Richie visitation rights. Financial issues had been settled through a prenuptial agreement, but no legal document could untangle the emotional wreckage that followed. The divorce became instant front-page news. Yet what truly shocked the public was Richie's reaction. While on tour with Bon Jovi, he told ABC News that everything at home is fine, even claiming he planned to spend Valentine's Day with Heather. His words made it clear he had been completely blindsided. Just months before the filing, the couple had appeared together in interviews, laughing off rumors of trouble. After 11 years together, we're still happy. Boring but true, they said. It was a statement that now sounded haunting. A snapshot of two people clinging to the illusion of forever, even as their love was slipping away. When Heather finally filed those divorce papers, every illusion of calm shattered overnight. The reassurances, the smiles for the cameras, the carefully crafted image of stability, all of it crumbled in an instant. Yet nothing could have prepared her for the real blow that came after the split. Because soon after the divorce, Richie Sambora, her ex-husband, began dating Denise Richards, Heather's former best friend. This wasn't just some casual Hollywood fling. Denise wasn't another face in the crowd. She had been Heather's confidant, the one she called late at night, the one who held her hand through heartbreaks, and the one who had once promised, "I'll always be on your side." To see Denise and Richie together wasn't just betrayal. It was the ultimate heartbreak, like watching the two people you trusted most burn down the only bridge you had left. The tabloids pounced instantly. Headlines screamed, "Friendship destroyed by love storm," and "Best friend becomes the other woman." The world watched as Denise Richards was branded a homewrecker, while Heather was left to stand alone, humiliated, heartbroken, and reeling from a double loss. She hadn't just lost her husband, she'd lost her sister in spirit. That betrayal tore through the perfect image Heather had worked so hard to maintain. The beautiful wife, the loving mother, the woman who seemed to have it all. Now the cracks were visible for all to see. The pain bled into every corner of her life. What the world didn't see was that this moment marked the beginning of her long descent, a spiral that would soon take her into the darkest corners of fame. Feeling utterly betrayed by the two people she loved most, Heather's world caved in. The heartbreak wasn't just emotional, it was psychological. Her confidence crumbled, her sense of trust vanished. What followed were years of painful battles with mental health and addiction. Her divorce from Richie didn't just end a marriage, it detonated the foundation of her identity. It marked the start of a haunting new chapter, filled with anxiety, depression, and an escalating dependence on prescription drugs. Tell me honestly, what would you have done in her place? Could you ever forgive your best friend for falling into the arms of your ex? Or would the pain consume you too? For Heather, it did. What began as heartbreak soon spiraled into chaos. Despite her radiant Hollywood smile, behind the scenes, she was fighting demons no one could see. The actress who once ruled primetime television was now trapped in a cycle of emotional breakdowns and public scandals. The breaking point came one February night in 2018. Police were called to her Westlake Village home after a violent altercation with her boyfriend Chris Heiser. It was 9:40 p.m. when officers arrived, but what they walked into was a storm. Heather lashed out not only at her boyfriend, but at 3 responding officers. The confrontation ended with her being restrained and charged with domestic violence, along with 3 counts of battery on law enforcement. And it didn't end there. During questioning, her anger took an even darker turn. She allegedly threatened to shoot the police if they ever dared to return. The threat was so serious that authorities later searched her home for a registered firearm, though nothing was found. Still, the headlines that followed were merciless. Heather Locklear, once America's golden girl, had become the face of Hollywood's heartbreak and self-destruction. But fate wasn't done testing her. Just months later, in June 2018, came another arrest, another explosion. This time, she allegedly assaulted both a police officer and a paramedic who had come to help during another alcohol-fueled outburst. Within days of her release, she was rushed to the hospital for a suspected overdose. The week before that, firefighters had already been called to her home amid reports that Heather was suicidal and violent. The woman who once seemed untouchable, the golden star of Melrose Place and Dynasty, was now fighting not just for her career, but for her life. It's the kind of tragedy that makes you wonder, how far can a person fall before the world stops watching and starts caring? This chain of explosive events left Heather staring down 8 criminal charges, a shocking fall for a woman once crowned television's golden sweetheart. The charges included 5 counts of battery on an officer, 1 count of battery on emergency personnel, and 2 counts of obstructing law enforcement. To avoid serving prison time, Heather struck a deal: mandatory mental health treatment, 30 days in a psychiatric facility, a suspended 120-day jail sentence enforced only if she failed to complete her program, and 3 years of probation. And in that heartbreak lies a sobering truth. Sometimes, the most devastating wounds aren't inflicted by enemies, but by the ones we love most. For Heather, losing both her husband and her best friend wasn't just a double betrayal. It was like having the ground vanish beneath her feet. The very people she leaned on for strength became the source of her collapse. It begs the painful question: how do you stand tall when both love and friendship, the 2 pillars that hold a heart steady, crumble at once? Perhaps it isn't fame or the glare of Hollywood lights that truly break a person, but the emptiness that follows when the 2 people who once gave life meaning suddenly turn away. Yet after weathering 2 failed marriages and the crushing silence of heartbreak, Heather found a flicker of hope again. This time, it came from someone familiar, her Melrose Place co-star, Jack Wagner.
Fans adored them as fiery on-screen lovers Amanda Woodward and Peter Burns, who faked their deaths to escape their chaotic world. Off-screen, their connection proved far more genuine. Years after their respective marriages ended, Heather and Jack's friendship blossomed into something real in 2007, a love born from shared history and mutual understanding. 4 years later, in August 2011, Jack proposed and Heather said yes, a moment that felt like redemption, a promise that maybe love could heal what betrayal had broken, but happiness proved fleeting. Just 3 months later, the couple called off their engagement, overwhelmed by the challenge of blending their families and carrying the weight of past pain. Still, unlike her previous heartbreaks, this ending wasn't bitter or explosive. It was quiet. Two people choosing peace over pain, respect over resentment. For Heather, it was a bittersweet reminder that even after the storm, love can still return, fragile, fleeting, but real. Wagner would later admit that he and Heather never truly lost touch. They occasionally exchanged birthday messages or simple check-ins, gentle reminders that despite everything, there was still warmth and respect between them. Their friendship became a rare Hollywood testament. Two people who, even after heartbreak, chose to preserve what was beautiful. For Heather, Wagner wasn't just a former lover. He was a cherished reminder of her brightest Melrose Place years, a chapter filled with laughter, passion, and unforgettable moments. When that chapter finally closed, Heather didn't rush into another love story. It took years of reflection, healing, and personal battles before she found something real again. This time, it wasn't with a co-star or a celebrity. It was with someone who knew her long before the fame, her high school sweetheart, Chris Heiser. When they reunited in 2017, it wasn't under the best circumstances. Heather was enduring one of the darkest periods of her life, but Chris's quiet presence became her steady anchor. He didn't try to fix her. He simply stood by her, reminding her of who she once was and who she could still be. Slowly, he helped her find her balance again. One day, one breath, one sober step at a time. Then came April 2020, a month that marked two powerful milestones. Heather celebrated 1 full year of sobriety, and she and Chris officially got engaged. The timing couldn't have been more symbolic. It wasn't just an engagement, it was a rebirth. Her family and daughter Ava celebrated the moment, seeing it as proof that Heather had finally found peace. A close family friend told People magazine they're truly happy together. Her family, parents, siblings, and daughter are all supportive and thrilled for her. For Heather, happiness didn't need a white gown or an aisle. In her own words, she said, "You'll be my husband for life, whether we get married or not. What matters is that we're together, loving and supporting each other. That's what really counts." Those words spoke volumes, not just about love, but about freedom, acceptance, and emotional maturity. When she spoke about Chris, her tone softened. She said, "He's the most easygoing, loving man. He always supports me, and I support him. He's truly very special to me." Their love wasn't about spectacle or headlines. It was about calm after chaos. By 2021, as both Heather and Chris turned 60, she embraced the milestone with confidence and lightheartedness. She said, "I feel young. It's only 60. What matters is perspective." To her, age wasn't a limitation. It was a badge of survival, proof that she had weathered everything life threw her way and still stood tall. Chris wasn't just her fiancé. He was her witness. He had seen her at her lowest and still chose to stay. Their engagement, coming at a time when Heather had finally regained her sobriety, symbolized renewal, proof that even after walking through shadows, light can still find its way in. Heather Locklear may not have an Oscar or an Emmy sitting on her shelf. Her imprint on American television is everlasting. From Dynasty and T.J. Hooker to Melrose Place and Spin City, she was the industry's secret weapon. The actress-producer producers called when a show needed saving, and more often than not, she delivered. By the late 80s and throughout the 90s, her name became a guarantee of success. When ratings dropped, she was the answer. She didn't just act, she redefined what it meant to be a leading woman on television. She embodied power, sensuality, and complexity all at once. She became the face of a new TV era, the queen of primetime.
Her portrayal of Amanda Woodward in Melrose Place didn't just elevate her career, it turned her into a pop culture icon. The press hailed her as the modern-day Alexis Carrington, a title that perfectly captured her blend of elegance, ambition, and fire. Heather wasn't just playing a character, she was defining an era. While critics often declared, without Amanda, Melrose Place could never have become a global phenomenon, they weren't exaggerating. Heather Locklear's influence stretched far beyond television drama. It became a cultural touchstone. Twice invited to host Saturday Night Live, she proved she wasn't just a TV darling. She was part of America's pop culture heartbeat. So when she won the 1991 People's Choice Award for Favorite Female Television Performer, it wasn't just another trophy. It was a nationwide acknowledgement that Heather had become something rare, a familiar presence who felt like family in millions of American homes every Monday night. Heather Locklear's legacy is distinctive, not defined by a glittering film career, but a lasting bond with television audiences that endured for more than 2 decades. She showed that consistency and connection can matter more than red carpets or golden statues. She wasn't chasing prestige, she was building presence, and that presence made her unforgettable. Yet today, when people mention Heather, there's always a lingering question. Will she be remembered for the roles that shaped primetime television or for the struggles that made headlines? That tension, the blend of brilliance and fragility, is what makes her story so human, so radiant, and so unforgettable. These days, Heather no longer graces the screen as often, but her name still stirs emotion. After years of upheaval, she's embraced a quieter, steadier rhythm of life in California. She spends her days focused on family, healing, and protecting her peace. Often spotted walking through her neighborhood in simple clothes, she appears grounded and content, a striking contrast to the glamorous queen of prime time who once ruled America's weeknights. What endears her to audiences now isn't fame, it's resilience. Her bond with her daughter, Ava Sambora, has become one of the most touching parts of her journey. Ava hasn't just been Heather's daughter, she's been her rock, her confidant, her witness through heartbreak and healing. Together, they've shown that love, not fame, is what truly endures. In recent years, Heather has quietly reconnected with a few trusted friends from the industry. She's learned to step back from chaos. No gossip, no flashing cameras, no red carpets. But in 2025, fans got a few unexpected glimpses of the star they'd missed so dearly. First came her appearance on the What Do You Want podcast with longtime friends Jillian Barberie and Melanie Mansell, where she surprised everyone with her warmth and humor. Then in April 2025, she turned heads again at the Calgary Expo in Canada, speaking candidly about her career and sharing behind-the-scenes memories from her television years. Just weeks later, she had an emotional reunion with Michael J. Fox at the Toronto Fan Expo, a heartwarming moment nearly 25 years after their Spin City days. The crowd could feel it. Heather's spark was still there, that same charm that once lit up screens across America. But not all of 2025 brought joyful headlines. In May, fans learned that Heather and her longtime fiancé, Chris Heiser, had quietly ended their engagement after nearly 5 years together. It was another chapter closed, another reminder that even icons face heartbreak. And yet, through it all, Heather Locklear remains a symbol of grace under pressure, a woman who stumbled, fell, and chose peace over perfection. Her story isn't just about fame or tragedy, it's about survival.
revival, reinvention, and the quiet strength of a woman who refuses to fade quietly into memory. Sources close to her revealed that Heather is finally in a good place, calmer, more grounded, learning to stand tall after another personal setback. Her quiet resilience, her ability to rise after every fall, has only deepened the world's admiration for her. People aren't just remembering Heather Locklear, the glamorous star of the 90s. They're seeing Heather, the fighter, and that strength makes her more compelling than ever. She's also remained central in conversations about a possible Melrose Place reboot. During a 2025 panel, she didn't shy away from the speculation. Instead, she leaned into it, speaking openly about her time on the show. Producer Charles Pratt even revealed that Heather's high salary was once a key reason the show could not continue, a revelation that reflected just how dominant she was at her peak. She wasn't just another actress, she was prime-time television. But even legends face pressures few can imagine. Heather spoke candidly about the impossible beauty standards of her Melrose Place years, recalling how the wardrobe's ultra-short skirts often made her feel exposed. Sometimes, she said, you couldn't even sit down without worrying. That small confession said everything about the relentless expectations Hollywood placed on her to look perfect, stay relevant, and never falter. At home, Heather has built something entirely different, a sanctuary. Her house has become her safe haven, a place where peace finally feels possible. Those close to her say she treats it as sacred ground, yet whispers persist that she may consider another round of treatment to protect her progress and mental stability. It's a reminder that the fight for inner peace never truly ends. And that's what makes Heather Locklear's story so powerful. Her choice to live quietly, to heal in her own time, and to return only when ready has transformed how the world sees her. Now in her 60s, Heather isn't chasing the bright lights anymore. She's embracing something far more meaningful: stillness, gratitude, and peace. Fans who once loved her for her roles now admire her for something deeper: her honesty, endurance, and courage to face herself. Maybe that's her true legacy. Heather Locklear, the woman who rose, fell, and rose again. The star who learned that real strength doesn't come from applause, but from the quiet decision to keep fighting even when no one's watching. Her story isn't one of fame or downfall. It's one of rediscovery, finding peace not on magazine covers, but in the mirror. Through it all, her daughter Ava has been her anchor, her reason to keep moving forward, proof that love can rebuild what fame once broke. So maybe it's time to see her differently, not as a fallen star, but a woman who refused to stay down. Because Heather's journey isn't tragic, it's human. Now I'll leave you with this. When you look at Heather's story, do you see a fading star or a woman reclaiming her light? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe.